All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So what I'm going to call this is, it's always somebody else's fault. So the reason I want to bring this up is because I'd say most people I talk to, there's always somebody else to blame for the situation that they ended up in. I don't know why they believe that. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of times we may end up sometimes in positions because somebody misled us. It could be in a relationship, it could be at work, it could be with a friend, it could be with a colleague. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Okay, it does happen. But what I am going to say is, though, for the most part, a lot of decisions that you probably made were the wrong decisions. That you shouldn't have either listened to someone else or you allowed yourself to put yourself in a position where you depended on someone else. I also think a lot of times you don't realize that you blaming somebody else, right, for your issues or where you ended up in your life, there's people out there probably saying that you did the same to them. And if you confront them, they would be like, are you nuts? I never meant for them to do this. Or why did they think that? That's their fault. It's always, again, blaming somebody else. So no matter what I think side you're on, either blaming somebody or them blaming you, again, it's always somebody else's fault. Also, if somebody blames you for something, saying you put me in this position, you'll in turn blame somebody else for the position you're in that you had to put them in that position. It's so much bullshit. The quicker people just take responsibility for all the decisions they made, and all the decisions you made, you got to realize also, they're not going to be good decisions. I talk about it all the time. You made probably a lot more bad decisions than good decisions. You also made a lot of decisions that you didn't even know, how they would pan out, but you didn't have enough information. That is life. Again, I tell a lot of people, especially as they get older, stop living in hindsight. Because, of course, if you had all the knowledge about how it was going to play out, you wouldn't have made that move. But it is quite interesting when something becomes successful, they're a genius. And I knew that would happen. So on one end, when it doesn't work out to their advantage, they were lied to, misled, or whatever the issue is. But when it worked out, you knew it was going to work out because, strategically you had everything figured out, which is kind of hilarious. Because the reality is you probably didn't know it necessarily would go your way the way it did. It just kind of did. Put that aside. Back to it always being somebody else's fault. That's the one thing I had to get over too, even as a young boy, because I had these certain things that I wanted to do. And before you know it, you start changing your career decisions. You move to a place maybe you'd want to go, but it's not the exact same place. And then, it could be even something that happens to you in a relationship. It could be like what happens to maybe even your kids or what situation you ended up with them or in your marriage or all these different types of things. Again, I have to take 100% responsibility. All those decisions were on me. They are on me. There's nobody else. If I didn't want to go do what I did, if I'm doing things that I don't want to do, what the hell am I doing? A lot of people are like, you had no other choice. No, I had choices. We all have choices. You can't sit around and bullshit yourself and say, yeah, I had to do this because my father said this. I had to do that because my mother said this. I had to do this because that was the only job, and I had to move there because of this. And sometimes there are certain situations you may have to sacrifice. But you got to understand, a lot of times, most of these decisions that you're making throughout your life, it falls on you, man. Especially when it comes to finances. Nobody's got a gun to your head. I always said if the gun's not pointed to your head, you're in the driver's seat. Most of us have freedom to do what we want. You have the freedom if you get creative. If you want to be more educated, you could have went to school longer. If you wanted to start your own business, start it, get a loan, or work for someone, figure it out. Stop again blaming other people for you not doing things that you wanted to do, creating what you wanted to create, failing, all these things, and especially with jobs. That's the one thing too. Most people I know that work for other people are always complaining that they're putting them in this position, right? Or they don't get enough money, or they're not getting enough out of the company, or they're being misled. Leave. If you're so good at what you do, what are you doing there? I talk about this a lot too. If you're so good at what you do, people should be working for you. If you're so good at what you do, why don't you own the company? Everybody has kind of this outlook I love that people value themselves. I shouldn't say that. But there does come a point, too, that you kind of overvalue who you are. And I go through this with a lot of people, too, working with me on my marketing or people that I've worked with on many different things. I'm like, if you were so good, you wouldn't be dealing with me. I'm just telling you, you'd be a multimillionaire, right? And if you were so good, you wouldn't be working for me. You'd have others working for you. Just saying. So, and that's not a diss, right? It's just to take the position to stop, again, pretending that all the things that you're going through or that you've gone through are other people's faults. Take the hit. That's the one thing I talk about a lot of times in self-awareness in my Mastering Self-Confidence program with men. Take the emotional hit. Understand you're constantly making mistakes. You're not great at everything. You're probably barely good at most things. But I do want a lot of men, I tell them they don't realize all the potential they have. That I believe in. But if you're going to sit around and blame women for your problems, you're out of your fucking mind. Why you can't meet women or date women or why women aren't around you, instead of having them be attracted to you, they're disgusted by you. You think that's them? That's you most likely. If relationships aren't working out, a lot of times it's not their fault most likely. It's you and your behavior. That's who's at fault. Same with work. If you can't find a good job, that's on you. Either you're not qualified or educated enough. You're just not a hard worker. I mean, you have to understand, if you're well overweight, and I'm not here to dig on anybody, you think it's the gym's fault or health or anybody else's? No, your eating habits most likely. You being lazy, that's the fault. And I get sometimes we don't always have the same genetics, let's say. So you may have certain issues. Now, if you have health issues, of course, that's a whole different thing, and I'm not talking about that. I always try to make myself clear. But if you're getting obese and you keep eating a lot of shit food and you're lazy and not doing anything, you can't sit and say, you know what, I'm depressed at work, that's why I do this. Or I'm an alcoholic, you drink too much. You could be like, well, because of my relationship I'm in. You're blaming someone else because why you're drinking? I mean, think about what you're saying and doing. None of it really makes sense. So anyways, that's my 2 cents regarding this. If you want to know more, actually, on the other end with my Mastering Self-Confidence program for men, you could just go to masteringselfconfidence.com. But lately I've been trying to do more podcasts for men and women. And it's just, my goodness, the quicker you learn, younger, I guess you could say, the better off you're going to be, that realizing that, you have to be in total control of your entire life. Do not let others take control. If you do allow others to take control of your life, your finances, and things do not work out, again, it was on you. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people, too, that can help you through things. You don't have to be taken advantage of. And here's the thing, though. You most likely are going to be taken advantage of. I can assure you throughout your life. And most of the people that are going to do that are the closest ones to you, because those are the only ones you're going to probably allow to let you do that. But here's the deal. You have to overcome that. And also, regardless who you're dealing with, protect yourself. Don't wait for the bottom to fall out, and have common sense. If a deal's too good, it's usually not a good deal. I'm just saying, sometimes, you can find great deals, but if people are pitching you or bullshitting you, and you get taken advantage of financially, even emotionally in a relationship, or all these things, you let your guard entirely down. Again, your naiveness is the problem again, right? If you're going to sit there and blame others, you got to look in the mirror and say, what the hell was I thinking? And again, we all can be blindsided. But you also, after getting blindsided, take the hit and move on. Stop, I call it carrying anchors. All these things, year after year, decade after decade, blaming others for situations that you're in that have nothing to do with the now. And I really say, a lot of people I know, they'll tell me 10 years ago this happened, or 15 years ago, and they still don't have their shit together, even emotionally in relationships. I'm like, you understand that other person most likely moved on and doesn't even know that you feel this way, but it's not. I'm not saying they didn't screw you over or not, but you have to move on. You actually are destroying yourself. I mean, for what? Why would you do that? Is that to prove a point to everybody else that you are emotionally unstable? Is that how you're getting attention? Because the reality is, you have to move on one way or another if you plan on living your life. And you don't also realize a lot of times by you saying that everybody else destroyed you, kind of takes a toll on everybody else, because all you're doing is preaching that, or you're acting a certain way that's exhausting everyone else. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you got any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up. My Mastering Self-Confidence program is masteringselfconfidence.com. That's where I really try to help men find the woman of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. I also get into wardrobe, hygiene, fashion, fitness, and other things as well. So take care, everyone, and please do not, again, let people, I shouldn't say people, but do not let yourself be taken advantage of.